Mere conservatism.
And so glad to have you. Cleve Walker here. David Perry also here.
Hey, Cleve, and just so you know, I am a biologist. So if you'd like to ask me anything in that realm, I identify as a biologist.
And by the way,
and so I'd be willing to answer those questions.
Not only are you a biologist, but at the time of this production of this podcast, the Masters is going on. And
yes.
You've been there. You have a good time?
Yeah, we had a good time. We got rained out.
Oh, that's right.
So we were only there for a couple hours before the storms came. I have actually never been on the grounds before when they blew the horn. They said they had lightning in the area. And so we had to.
They got to go. Yeah.
We were at the front. We had to exit out the back. So we walked the whole course.
Bless your heart.
To leave.
Wow.
Which was nice. We got to see the whole thing twice. We walked from the back to the front and then the front to the back, and we left.
You got a good attitude. Yeah. that's pretty good. Well, we've got a lot to talk about here that's going on, but I'm going to make a statement, and I may have mentioned this to you, I don't know, sometime back. Here was I won't call it fear, David, but here's the thing that I was waiting for. Because the Democrats now are obviously getting ready to face a shellacking in the midterms, because they know that Biden is just bombing terribly, okay, I said my fear was they're going to go for broke now because they have nothing to lose. Now, they've been doing that a lot earlier, but now I think they really are saying, David, and to all of us, okay, our goose is cooked come the midterms, so we're not going to hold anything back. We're going to go for the weirdest, wackiest, most draconian stuff that you could possibly imagine.
So this is your take on the policy that they're pursuing.
Yes.
You're saying that they're doing such a bad job because they're just doubling down on everything they've already been doing because they figure they're going to lose anyway.
Right.
So they're going to. Yeah. So this is an interesting hypothesis that you have, because I've been wondering this, and I have actually I've been a little concerned at points that perhaps the right and Republicans are falling into a trap.
A trap?
Yeah, just because, and the only reason I say that is because it looks so obviously bad for Democrats.
Right.
Why would they keep going this direction?
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah, that's what I was asking myself.
When your enemy, quote unquote, is making a huge, obvious mistake, don't you get a little suspicious that they might know something you don't?
Unless you know what I just said, that they have made a decision and that hey, we got to go ahead and do what we got to do now because we're about to get shellacked.
So that's and so there you go. That's your
that's my take.
Your take on what is going on.
Otherwise, to me, it makes no sense.
Well, there's a couple of other things.
Okay, what?
Here's another possibility. This one is much worse than what you just said.
I don't like.
They think they're going to win anyway because they have a mechanism in place for the election.
And what mechanism would that be?
Drop box, whatever they did last time.
Okay.
Look, I'm not saying not saying anything. All I'm saying is that they might think that despite the polls and despite the public backlash, that they can still win the election, and so they're not as worried about what people think right now. That is, I'm just saying.
Well, see, I semi-agree with you, only because this is what I was saying earlier.
You've been saying it for a long time.
I said if they get their election, quote unquote, reforms passed, they win no matter what happens.
Which they're not going to get.
And that's what I believe. It's not going to happen. But if that were to happen, if they were to get another emergency thing where they can do the drop boxes and infinity and in perpetuity, they would win. But that's not going to happen.
Maybe they still think they can find a way to win. I don't know. So that's one possibility. The other thing is that they're such true believers that they don't actually care about winning.
I thought about that.
They think they're doing the right thing, which I also don't believe. I really don't think so. I think that your hypothesis is probably the right one, which is that they see that they have basically 6 months.
Right.
6, 7, 8 months to do everything that they can
to
move the ball as much as they can to cause as much problems for the Republicans when they take power in the House and Senate as they can, and maybe even collapse the system. They might still be able to.
Now, that's a good point. what you just said. I kind of thought about that, but that was so awful to think about. I didn't want to think about it anymore. But you make a good point. Literally, for example, this Title 42 thing where they're getting ready to bust open the borders yet again by removing the only hindrance there.
Right. So we've been talking around the policies specifically just a little bit here. One of them is the border policy, which is they're about to blow the border wide open, which is a serious losing proposition for Democrats. The other thing that they're doubling down on is the transing the kids stuff, that stuff from the White House and the push from the left that they insist that teachers in schools should be able to discuss sex with children, which is strange. We've said it week after week here on Mere Conservatism that there is no non-creepy way to be against this law in Florida. It's creepy when people start talking about it. It's very strange that folks are standing on that hill and.
But they know this, David. Whatever they can get put in place. Right now, it's going to be harder to get out of place. For example, they were hoping by now to have, I think, the courts situation packed. Okay, because if they could have packed the Supreme Court, if they could have had two Supreme Court nominees who were totally wacko, like I think Judge Brown is, then that would save them. Because all of their policies, the one you're talking about, and all of them are going to go before that court.
It would go a long way if they had their judges.
Yeah, but if they had their judges on it, which is, by the way, that's how progressives have gotten a lot of stuff done, is by judicial fiat. And so they need that court.
Well, let me just mention something about something that's happening in our country, and it's been happening for several years, and it is accelerating here. You're seeing it very plainly with this Florida bill.
I'm glad you brought that up.
The Parents' Rights and Education Bill, where a lot of basically what the bill says is that you can't have classroom instruction for grades 3rd and under.
No. The bill says don't say gay. That's what it says.
No, it doesn't. It says that you can't have classroom instruction about gender identity and sexual orientation for 3rd graders and under.
Right.
Which isn't a strange thing to say. People who are against it who are against the law are very creepy. You've got people crying out against this law. You've got teachers resigning from school systems in Florida, which I say, awesome.
Goodbye.
Great purge. And also, that is weird. Okay, you feel so strongly about this, and also you've got New York advertising in Florida. Move to New York.
I'm sorry.
Move to New York City.
So funny.
We'll take you. We'll take you. You creepy teachers who are resigning because you can't talk to 3rd graders, 8-year-olds.
Join our creepy teachers
about sexual orientation. We'll take you up in New York. Now, a couple things I want to say about that. Number one, New York needs all the people they can get because people are fleeing New York.
Right.
So I understand why they're doing it. But if it's successful, look what happens. New York gets bluer, if it's possible.
Oh, yeah.
Florida gets redder.
Yeah. I like that.
Florida is a very important state to Republicans.
Yeah.
And it's very red at the moment. It can get a lot redder. That would be a good thing.
Oh, that's wonderful. And we can't get New York anyway, so, bye-bye.
Right. And people are dividing, and they're voting with their feet. Liberals are... Apparently, they're staying put in California or New York or wherever. People who can no longer stand the liberal policies, they're moving to Florida. They're moving to Texas. The nation is self-sorting into these different sides. And I actually can't see a lot of bad that goes with that. I think that's actually maybe this is the best thing that can happen so that in Georgia, I hope people will come to the red state of Georgia. I hope Georgia will become red again very soon. But let's govern like a red state. Let's be conservative. Let's be Republicans. And you can let New York have all their liberals they want to have.
Georgia is going to get back one of those Senate seats this next election. I really believe that.
I hope so.
I really believe that. And that in itself is like a super important turning point for Georgia. Here's something I love. Okay, because one of the things you just mentioned that the progressives, the Democrats, Biden are going for broke over is the border. They want to see the thing disappear. They want to see such a flood. It may actually cause another emergency sort of stuff that they again. They like crisis. But Texas Governor Greg Abbott, bless his heart, he plans to send illegal immigrants that come across the border to Texas. He's going to bus them to Washington, D.C.
Good.
They already have the mechanism in place, and he's already declared it. He says they're going to voluntarily send migrants who were previously processed with a message that Texas has zero tolerance for illegal immigrants going into their border communities. So they're going to start busing them to D.C. David, that is...
Drop them off in front of the White House.
That is brilliant, isn't it? Because D.C., the plan for getting these immigrants, they were trying to do it real sneaky, undercover, until Fox News, bless their hearts, broke it wide open and they were doing these nighttime flights and whatnot. But to turn the tables and said, okay, borders open. New York, D.C., maybe some other liberal states that were sanctuary states for illegal immigrants, they're coming your way.
Mm-hmm. I think it's good. Now, you said that they're going to process these folks first.
Yeah, I think they're either going to process them or take the ones that have been processed and do it. In other words, just get the ones who are basically being released on their own recognition and just get them out of there. Yeah,
well, I think that this is good. This definitely needs to happen. It is an investment by the state of Texas, but it's a lot better than having them stay there and
the alternative
resources
is
and different
them.
Things like that.
Yeah.
And if the federal government is not going to properly police the border and handle this issue correctly, they can handle the immigrants. Just dump them off in D.C. and let Biden himself.
And other border states have hinted that they might try something like this as well. Arizona, for example, has mentioned this kind of thing. And it's only right because it is clearly wrong. It ought to be clearly wrong. It ought to be clearly seen as unconstitutional that Biden is not keeping his oath of office to protect our borders, to protect Americans, because what's happening down on the border, it's awful. And it's a human tragedy engineered by the Democrats simply for the sake of getting Democratic constituency built up. And
I guess that's what they're doing.
What do you think they're doing it for? I mean, these are all future Democrat voters that come across the border.
Think. Yeah, they shouldn't vote for a long time, and they're not going to be citizens. So they shouldn't vote for a long time. I see your face when I say that. I know.
If the progressives were able to remain in power after the midterms, or somehow recapture the presidency after they dump Biden, they could find a way to get those illegal immigrants to vote.
Yeah. Well, I think they might think that at some point the problem is going to get so big that maybe they can negotiate some sort of path to citizenship or whatever.
Yeah.
It's again, I think this is another case of maybe trying to collapse the system. They don't like it. Mm-hmm. They don't like the immigration system. They don't like any of that stuff. So they want to overwhelm it.
Well, and they
want to allow it to
they're becoming
crumble,
successful.
And this is a way that they can do it. And it's they're sending the signals. Everybody come. We're going to get rid of this policy where you can't get in Title 43 or is it 43 or 42, whatever it is, the 40, COVID thing.
42
and people are going to flood the border. It's going to be a real problem. And you're right. This is going to lose Democrats tons and tons and tons of votes. This is not a popular policy.
They're thinking long term. We go ahead and break the system. We get them all in now because once we get them all in, no matter what happens during the elections, these people are here. And they ain't going no place. I mean, this is the reality that they're betting on, so that even though they may lose Senate and House, and hopefully, Lord willing, eventually lose the presidency, they've already got their future constituency in here. I mean, they are here. Mm-hmm. And Republicans have shown in the past they don't have much discipline enough to take the drastic steps to correct things like that.
Well, I hope that is changing. You know, Republicans are different now than they used to be.
Some of them, yes.
You'd like to think that they were more different. Mitt Romney's still a senator. When is he up for re-election, by the way? I meant to check that. He needs to go.
A couple of years.
But I think that with the right leadership, we can get this problem right, finally.
It's going to be hard. I mean, we're talking about extra few million by the time we get our chance to do anything about it. And I don't see us being able to deport even 50% out of that number out of here. So again, the Democrats are saying, hey, we got to look to the future. The present looks bad for us. So we're going to go ahead and do what we can now so that at least we got this to bank on. And I'm telling you, again, they're going for broke. And look at they're getting ready to get rid of Biden. I'm talking about the Democrats. They know he's not going to be there for the next presidential election. They know Kamala, to tell you the truth, it's not going to be anything they can hang their heads on. I had come up with a different theory about that. A lot of rumors were talking about getting Obama's wife,
Michelle,
to be the nominee. And, of course, Hillary is positioning herself to be the nominee. Obama himself, I think, wouldn't. Can he legally come back? It's not a consecutive term?
Well, no, he can only serve 2 terms.
Yeah, and that's it? Okay. If they could find a way to get around that little thing, they would love to put him back on the
Well, the way you get around it is Michelle Obama.
Well, that's true.
I mean, that is the way they would get around it. Yeah. It would be Michelle Obama would be president, quote unquote, and Barack Obama would be chief of staff, maybe, which means that he's really calling the shots.
Yeah, but it would be. That's interesting. So I bring that up because they have no other bench. They have nowhere else to go. They literally are hurting for that position. They're hurting for. Democrats incumbents are vacating. They're saying I'm not going to run again. They see the handwriting on the wall. So they're going for broke, and that's both exciting in one way because it means that they know that at least for the near term they've lost, but it also is kind of scary because it lets me know they will now try anything that they've ever thought about doing.
Speaking of Joe Biden and him being president, did you see this week when Barack Obama came to the White House?
It was
what
awful.
happened to Joe? Nobody wanted to talk to Joe.
He was wandering around like a doddering old man, wasn't he?
It's sad to see.
I mean,
it's sad.
He even tried to get Obama's attention at one point, put his hand on his shoulder trying to say something, and Obama just basically blew him off.
Yeah.
I mean, this is supposed to be the president.
He's the most powerful person in the world.
Supposedly.
Yeah.
But I think that you and I are not the only ones who know that the reason he's not the most powerful person in the world because he's only doing what he's told. And you don't have to give respect to somebody like that. And even the Democrats, they don't respect him. His former boss has no respect for him. So, I mean, that again, I saw that and I saw him wandering around, and he finally reached off and got one of his cabinet people to talk to. But
it's sad for him, and it's sad for the United States of America because we have this is Cleve 81 million votes, 81 million.
Yeah,
it's crazy. I can't believe we're not even halfway through. We're like barely a year. More than a year into this, and it hasn't gone great.
No. As a matter of fact, it's been worse than anything Obama did. Obama's presidency was restrained compared to this. But the monster called Hunter Biden, who is a monstrously terrible individual, he is exploding in his dad's face. I don't believe that Biden gets away from this. And the media, to me, are not covering for Biden anymore because too much of it is coming out. And Durham, and I think there's more going to come out that is going to be undeniable. We already there's textual evidence now that shows that Biden did a favor for somebody that his son asked him to do a favor for. Now, this is why he wasn't in office at this time. This is in between period. But it still shows that he was aware of his son's dealings, which he's denied the entire time. So we're looking at a situation here, and some of them are trying to cover for Biden, but they can't. I mean, it begs human.
I can't even believe this is real life. Like this is our president. It's one of those things. And frankly, I felt the same way when Trump was president for most of the presidency. I thought to myself, is this real life or is this like? This seems like a TV show.
In a different way, I agree with you. I mean, seriously, it did seem surreal because we never had anybody like Donald Trump in the Oval Office.
And now it's so it's so bad. It's crazy to think that a president could be. I mean, I feel like you have to try to be as bad as they have been. You have to try really hard.
One would think.
You would think so.
But we understand, and you said this before, though, in a vast majority of the progressive and people in that are true believers. They believe, and the Democratic Party has been taken over by them, and I think that's obvious now to everybody. Everybody thought they were the fringe, but they've taken over the party. And so we're seeing all their kookiness come out in plain view, something that may be the best thing that could happen. Because if, by God's grace, the nation is able to weather this particular stuff, the storm we're going through, I don't think people are going to want to go back to it. I think anybody associated with it will be a pariah in the eyes of most sane Americans. And so if we can, by God's grace, survive and go ahead and right the ship, this will be a lesson learned and at a very great cost, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. God is in control, and in the meantime, we've got to batten down the hatches because life is expensive. I don't know about you, Cleve, but inflation is really hurting me and my family.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's there. It's there.
It's not going away anytime soon.
And unfortunately, that's what it takes, though, because they were talking, remember early on, this is transitory inflation. Mm-hmm. This is all it is. This is going to pass. And it only got worse by 2 or 3, now 4 times. And unfortunately, David, we needed to see this. Okay, we needed to see the real world impact of their wacky, stupid, crazy, and I'll go ahead and say it, perverted ideas. And we're seeing it now. We got these people wanting drag queens to come and do storytime hour for kids. Okay, we needed to see that. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't want to see it happen, but we needed to see the reality of what these people are about. And one of the pundits that I listen to regularly is Glenn Beck, and the reason I listen to Glenn Beck, now he can get over the top. He can get a lot of hyperbole.
He's a ray of sunshine, isn't he?
But he's the first one to address these folks as they really are. He says, we got to understand the main reason that these people are doing this is because they are evil. Okay. That's not something that's used very often. We use, they're corrupt, they're power mad, they're power hungry. I'm agreeing with him. This is evil. When you come after the innocence of children, that's evil. That's not Democrat. That's not Republican. That's the action of evil people with evil policies. And I think people are finally beginning to see that.
I hope so. I hope that you are correct. And I am, kind of holding my breath till November to see what happens.
Here's something.
Because we really need to have Republicans sweep Congress.
We do. And once we get, by God's grace, once we have Republicans sweep Congress, we need to weed out from the Republican Party the Mitt Romneys and such. I mean, they need to go. Were it not for them, believe it or not, were it not for Romney and I forget the other gal, Murkowski and others like that, if it were not for them, we could defeat this Supreme Court nomination. Mm-hmm. But because of Romney and ilk, we can't. This gal is going to become our next Supreme Court justice because we don't have the right Republicans in power. We need to get some people out of there that have been in there. Yep. So at any rate, I want to give you a little bit of good news, because parents and lawmakers around the country have been fighting to get schools to ban CRT, critical race theory in schools, gang control. Well, Waukesha, Milwaukee, it's the latest. In their school board election, all 3 Republican-backed candidates took the 3 open seats on that board. Okay, and they're taking back their school board. And I bring it up because that is what we're going to have to do too. It can't just be at the state and national. We got to do it at the local, the town hall, that kind of stuff. This to me is the most encouraging sign. Is folks are saying, I can't become a senator, but I can sit on city council, I can sit on the school board. That's exciting to me.
Yeah, it's important for people to get involved and do something.
I mean, on the local level.
Yeah. And I love to see this kind of thing happen because I think you can feel a wave coming. You really can.
Yeah.
The mood of the country is changing, and it all happened when, really, frankly, COVID policy backfired on the left in a lot of ways. Yeah. But one of the ways in which it backfired is that it opened a lot of parents' eyes to what was going on with school.
Right.
And it's really kind of amazing.
It was a godsend in that way.
Kind of what? Yeah. Isn't it funny how God works? These things happen, and you could argue, Cleve, that without COVID, we would still not have any idea the depth of what was going on in schools, CRT and this sexual indoctrination, because this is all part of the same thing. Yeah. You could make the argument that without COVID, we wouldn't know. We'd still be in the dark when it came to that.
It all came out.
And isn't it funny how God used that bad, terrible thing, and used something that was totally uncomfortable and inconvenient for everybody, meaning specifically that schools were closed down, to actually shine the light on something that needed to be exposed.
That's what I'm banking my hopes on. Again, that God opened our eyes, and there's time yet to right the ship, and starting with the local level, starting with the grassroots. That's how the Tea Party started, by the way. The Tea Party was not started from the top down. It started from the grassroots, and that's the feeling I'm getting about what's happening right now.
Yeah, that's right. The top hated the Tea Party.
Oh, yes. John McCain had no use for us, and God rest his soul, but we don't need his ilk anymore on our side. Mm-hmm. Go be a true Democrat and go ahead and get it over with. Well, David, I'm encouraged. Tell you the truth, awful things are happening, but you brought up a great point. It would not be the first time God has allowed great evil only to turn it around for good. He's the only one who can do that kind of thing.
That's right.
And so our part is to simply do what we can. I look forward to seeing one day perhaps a Mayor David.
Mayor David. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of Davids out there, so I'm sure we could find you a Mayor David, no problem.
All right, a Mayor David Perry. I would love to see that, okay? Or David Perry in some local council, county type thing. I'm not trying to push you into it, but it's just a thought. It's along what we're talking about right now.
Because you'd be in jail.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
I know.
That's Trump's line. You'd be in jail.
Catch the MereConservatism podcast again. By the way, I'm Cleve Walker and David Perry. Where can they hear this again?
You can find it on Apple Podcast, on YouTube, or on Facebook.
Listen, the dogs are loose. They know that they've got to do what they're going to do now, but it's not over with yet. So keep the faith.